Hey everybody, welcome back to Worth Fighting For, a Last of Us podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brian, and I'm joined, as always, by Tamur. Tamur, how you doing?
Good. I'm excited to talk about episode 2. Let's do it.
Yeah, so the show wasn't a one-hit wonder. It kept hitting quite hard, I would say, with this episode 2.
Mhm.
And I want to talk a little bit about this first scene set in Jakarta. We heard, obviously, in the first episode that stuff was happening in Jakarta on the radio when Sarah was cooking breakfast. So I was like, at that point, I was like, oh, this is just like a little bit of spice, a little bit of world building, like just like, oh yeah, something's happening here. You know, similar to the newspaper in the game that Sarah picks up and she sees that like people have been hospitalized and stuff. Just like a little extra that we'll never see. Little did I know, the beginning of this episode, we would see 2 days before the beginning of the last episode. Does that make sense? I believe it was September 24th
Mm.
in this. So September 26th is the first episode's
In
2003, the first
Texas.
like
Yeah.
setup. And I loved this setup. I hope we get stuff like this for the rest of the show because I think it really similar to in the first episode where you had the scientists on the talk show talking like, oh, here's like this theoretical thing that scares the shit out of me and I hope never happens. Now we have a scientist in the present day in like where seemingly the outbreak is starting. There's like this giant flour mill in Jakarta. I believe that's why they set this all in Jakarta.
Mhm.
Um, so that makes sense as to it started here. And we have this scientist basically like looking at the slides and being like, oh yeah, it's cordyceps. Why'd you prepare it the same way you would prepare like a human slide? And the police or military are just like, yeah, it's because this is from someone's brain. And yeah, once the scientist gets a look at it firsthand, she's like, yeah, just like kill everyone here. Like, this is the
Yeah.
only option. And that was chilling. The acting was amazing. I rewatched that scene a little bit before we did this just because I wanted to experience it again. And yeah, Timur, what did you think of this scene set in Jakarta?
I mean, I totally agree. It was completely unexpected, and I knew that Neil Druckmann was going to direct episode 2. We heard about that. So I really was not expecting it to go anywhere else other than what we've seen in the games, or maybe a little bit beyond that in terms of the characters we know. So seeing this show go to Indonesia and, seeing kind of the source, or at least what we think might be where it came from. Who knows? Maybe it was in, there's another origin beyond that. We'll probably never know. But then again, this show keeps like surprising us. And I agree. I think like I would love to see each episode kind of start with like a 10-minute or less kind of flashback or just a little bit of flavor to add to the story, to the, it really what it reminded me of was like, I don't know if you've seen the show Station 11, but that's another post-apocalyptic show that's on, it's an HBO Max original. I'm a big fan of it, but it's very realistic in its portrayal of the end of the world. And it's also about like love and beauty and how you can find these things at the end of the world. But there's a lot of flashbacks to, things really starting to get rolling and the anxiety setting in. Kind of like episode 1 of this, and kind of like this intro in episode 2. And yeah, I just love how realistic it felt. She realizes like this is like we're fucked. Humanity is doomed. Bomb the city, including me and my family. Like let me just go spend my last moments with them. It was like really strong, and I really did feel like Neil Druckmann's TV directing skills were like on full display, and I was loving it. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that is a chilling part too, where she's just like, bomb it and not even like I'm gonna try to survive. She's just like, yeah, no, I like bomb everyone, including me. Like this is so
Hmm.
serious. I believe they said that like 14 workers were unaccounted for, and that's
Right.
like very awesome. Like they said that, and her like hand like starts like shaking, and she has to like put the
Hmm.
tea down, and
Right.
she's just like she's realizing like, yeah, the world's over. it's
All right, it's been a good run. I'm
yeah,
gonna go home and spend the rest of the night with my kids. Yeah, and what's crazy too is later in the episode, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but once Ellie's, exploring this world for the first time, she's seeing these marks from a time before she was born where they really did bomb Boston, and they took that woman's advice. Maybe not, not directly because I'm sure
yeah.
Indonesia was
The
gone by then.
American equivalent to her, like,
Yeah,
also
exactly.
came to the exact same conclusion. Like, yep, it's all over. Like, just bomb
Exactly.
everyone. But it worked. Boston
Hmm.
has a quarantine zone, and
Exactly.
it may not have if they didn't do that. So messed up for sure, but it did work.
And good for us. I mean, if this happened in real life, I guess we'd be all right. Brian wearing the
Yeah,
Boston
yeah, it'd
Uprising
be
hat.
yeah, we'd be fine. We both don't eat gluten, so
Don't eat
we'd
gluten.
be good there.
Yeah, that was
It'd be
another big reveal. Was
mhm.
the bread factory, which we talked about last episode,
Yeah, see,
which
it's
was confirmed in
confirmed
this one.
pretty
Yeah.
much at this point. Like it was the bread. And a little later, Ellie eating a sandwich, flexing on Joel and
Yeah.
Tess. Just yeah, you had to eat dried like old beef jerky. I'm over here eating a chicken sandwich.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. I didn't even make that connection till now, but that's so funny the way they were like looking at her. It's like as bad as like, okay, is she gonna turn? It's like, wait, what the
Mm,
fuck? She's eating bread.
yeah,
I haven't seen that in 20 years.
yeah, exactly. They made it. They're like, oh, Ellie is immune, and one of the people was like, "That's sick," because I actually found a bread maker, and I've been
Yeah.
meaning to use it. So, like, this is perfect. We can make Ellie a chicken sandwich, and obviously, chicken is seemingly very rare in of itself at this point. So, like,
Right.
shows how important Ellie is to the Fireflies and to the future that they're really rolling out the red carpet as much as you can in this
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
What another thing that I really loved about this episode was, and it's continuing off of the last episode, the adaptation and like the kind of like twisting of like stuff is so great because this stuff where you're looking like this is out of the game. Ellie walking across the beams of the two building that's like straight up from the game. The scene at the end with Tess revealing that she's infected, almost like word for word. Obviously, there's a little difference in the show where it's infected coming to get them rather than Fedra and her having a shootout. But like, this is definitely like not only like video game adaptations, but just like adaptations in general. Like one of the really like closest. It's not beat for beat because they have changed stuff. They've added the tendrils, which I think are very interesting, and I'm gonna have to get your opinion on one scene in particular at the very end
Oh yeah.
that has
Yeah.
the internet, yeah, talking. But I just like love how they've. It's like yes, this is the story that we love as video game players, presented in a different way, so it's still like keeps you guessing and keeps you seeing like new stuff. But like as far as scenes with Ellie walking across the board, Tess getting bitten, the hotel, which I think is later in the game. I think that's in Pittsburgh in the game, but they adapted
Hmm.
it here, kind of making up for. I was hoping that we were going to see them walking through the building on its side because we saw it at the end of the
Mm,
last episode, but I don't know. Maybe that wouldn't realistically work um,
right.
to walk through or like shoot something like that. But no, there's so much like pretty close and like different enough to like really make me just excited to see the rest of this adaptation.
Oh, definitely. I mean, even just going through that hotel, I was like, oh my god, I remember exploring places like this in the game and adding, just getting those little details of like Ellie can't swim. Obviously, she was born in this, you know, this city where
Yeah,
she's like
that
barely leaving her boarding school.
that
She's an
line is
orphan.
so good. I can't
So
sort of
good.
give her a look, and she's like, "Do you think you have pools in the QZ? Like, why are they teach me how to swim?" So good.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you get little moments like that in these locations that are very familiar to people who have played the games? Um, but what they're doing is, instead of as a player going through these spaces and like having your characters talk as you're like, setting up a box so you can like get to something higher and like
Yeah,
sort of navigate through these levels. They're having these like
pushing
character moments.
Ellie on a what is it? A pile. Oh God, what are those called?
Yeah,
I
like
can't remember.
the I know
Things
what
of
you're talking about.
wood. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Um,
the platforms in the water that have a proper name that I can't remember right now. But yeah,
yeah.
at least we didn't have to. At least we didn't have to see that. Would have been kind of funny, but not
Yeah, I
my
was thinking
favorite
that.
part of the game.
As soon as I saw, I was like, oh shit, there's water and everything, and she can't swim. I was like, are they about to pull out one of those like boards of wood so she can like float
Palette,
across it?
palette. That's what they're called.
Pallet. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to go back, Brian, or you
No,
wanna?
no. This is fine. I think it's funnier if I don't know
Okay.
what it's called. So obviously, not doing a lot of manual labor in my life. Like, you know,
Likewise.
my my skills extend to being an okay podcaster, and that is about it. so, so if you guys
Yeah.
don't listen to tell your friends, I am in trouble.
I've already forgotten what it's called. No, pallets. All right. So like, yeah, I was as soon as like we got to that scene, I was like, are they about to take out a freaking pallet and like drag Ellie across like this? But then you see that it's just like it's up to their knees and like they can easily go across. But um, yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's so fun being able to see all these places. I mean, the budget must have been really high for this, but then again, it's like, I mean, I've seen other shows with budgets this high or even higher, which were not nearly as well written or well like uh directed really, like I mean, I don't know how if you've seen this, but I was just watching DMZ because I gave it a shot a little while back and I
DMZ.
did
What
not like it.
is that a zombie show as well?
So it's not about zombies. It's kind of just more about like militaries and basically the premise is that New York City or Manhattan proper becomes this like demilitarized zone, and then
Right.
everything around it is like very like combat. And basically, this woman tries to sneak in to find her teenage son, who she was separated with. But it is a very post-apocalyptic world, and I think a lot of people might see that oh, this show is also on HBO. If I'm in the mood for something like The Last of Us, I'll check this out. But really, honestly, I I'm not a fan, and it's just not as. But they have very similar sets. Like the budget was way up there, but it's just I don't know. Yeah, it's so interesting seeing it here in a show that's really about like the characters, the story, and there's so much thought put into it beyond just like, oh, it's the end of the world, let's make some cool sets. Like everything feels in this like it has to do with the plot. And I think a big part of that is that Ellie is seeing the world for the first time. She's grown up in this very, very small part of the world, basically the QZ, and like she's experiencing these things for the very first time, and we get to like see that, and that's just so special to me. Yeah.
Yeah, again, they took a scene from the game where Joel and her have like a moment looking out over the city, and she's like, can't beat the view, and yeah, it goes to
Mm,
what you were saying. She has been in this, very small slice of the world, and it goes to show why she may have wanted to sneak out. She wanted to see more than what she had.
mm-hmm.
And is it smart to sneak out during the middle of a zombie apocalypse? Not particularly. No, I don't think so. But you know, it obviously cost her getting bit and potentially more. I know she says that she was alone. We'll have to wait and see if the show how that handles that.
Mm.
Obviously, Tamor and I have a good idea from the DLC, but
Hmm.
yeah, you know, it's. I think Ellie's a very compelling character, and I think Bella Ramsey has really captured a lot of what made her so compelling in the game. You know, she's
Definitely.
really like, I don't know how to put it other than like she's like a kind of quirky, very like headstrong teenage girl, and Bella Ramsey's really captured that well.
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. You're getting a real sense of the stakes within this world through her eyes because we're seeing it for the first time as well as the audience, and you start off this journey, the three of them, and they're kind of just chatting at first, and it's actually kind of like beautiful seeing like this foliage around Boston and the overgrown, the cars and just the environment. It's so cool, really, in a way. And I'm sure Ellie's feeling that. You can tell like she's feeling that too. But then you hear those little noises and you get this sense of like, oh, there really is a lot of danger here. And then you enter the Boston Museum, and you're getting a sense of these stakes from her. Really, I think that's what they're doing. Yeah. Which I
Yeah,
have to
and
mention, the Boston Museum. I Every time I see it, I think of Fallout 4
Fallout,
because
me too. Yeah.
it's like overrun with super mutants, and it's just
Mhm.
like it's such a cool location, that game too. But
Yeah. No, I do as well. Even though it wasn't Last of Us as well, but yeah, it definitely was more
mm,
prominently featured in Fallout. But yeah, no, I think you're right. It's nice to have someone like that to be the audience surrogate to, because like if it's just a bunch of you know battle hardened survivors, why would they explain anything to each other? But you have
mhm.
someone who's never been out there. It makes more sense. You can explain everything to her, except they don't. So she makes a comment about like, oh, are there basically bloaters from the games that like rip off pieces of themselves and throw it at you? And they're like, no. And she's like, oh, so there also aren't. And she like describes clickers, and they like don't say anything. And it's like, man, if that would be, I'd be like, yes, those are real. If you see them, don't say anything. Like I wouldn't want it in the
Yeah,
moment, be like explaining the rules of clickers to her like they did on the show. But I guess it also wouldn't make sense from a show point of view for them to explain it, because you want like new viewers to be scared when they do see the actual clickers that Ellie described in real life. And holy shit, dude, they did an amazing job with the
yeah,
clickers. Like it was really brought to life in an incredible way. I guess it was mostly practical effects too, which is awesome. They
mm,
found actors who were like fans of the show. They said in the post thing, which was cool.
hmm
And yeah, man, terrifying. So fucking scary.
completely terrifying. Yeah, I mean it's literally just lifted from the game in the best possible way. Where like they're scary in the game. Seeing them like in the flesh, it's absolutely terrifying. Like when it's that first shot when you really, because at first they're kind of obscured in the background, they're out of focus, or they're like behind glass, and they're just they're trying to be quiet. They're trying not to like draw their attention. And again, you're getting the rules through Ellie's eyes. Like, okay, these things can't see us; they can only hear us. She breathes, and that thing turns around and just yells in their face, and like the flashlight. That shot is just so incredible. It gives me like chills.
Yeah, it's kind of like a recreation of the shot from the second game trailer, right? They have it,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I don't remember if it was also in the first one, but at least for me, I was like, oh yeah, this is even like an adaptation of a trailer from another game where that it is terrifying. And like in the game, you'll run into clickers at just like the worst moments, where you're all
Mm.
like fucked up from fighting people and you have like
No
two
bullets.
bullets and yeah, no shivs, and you're like, oh my god, like I'm gonna die. This is horrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, it captured that well. Another thing I definitely wanted to bring up, because it is the biggest change in the show, the tendrils, the fungus being part of a giant network. Really, like, in my eyes, the fungus is working on becoming like the dominant species on the
Mm.
entire Earth, which I thought was cool, and just like having the ability for you to accidentally alert like a horde of zombies from
Mm.
across like the city to your position is so terrifying. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the change up on them being kind of like a hive mind, or maybe even just a singular organism spread out?
Yeah. No, I think it's really clever. I mean, that's something that wasn't in the games that I think would have been. I mean, I think it would have been doable in the games, but yeah, it just adds that extra element of like, oh my god, if you step in the wrong place, like you'll have an entire horde on you. And everybody who like watches zombie movies and reads zombie comic books knows like hordes. That's like the epitome of like you're fucked. Like I don't know, you got to figure something out because that's like um, end all. But yeah, it's I think it's a really clever device, and even they were saying in the post show discussion, whatever you call those, like inside the episode, they were saying like this is actually accurate to the science of how these organisms react. Like sometimes you do have like a mile of just underground mushrooms that are they're interconnected, like, and so I mean it makes logical sense.
Yeah, and this thing is kind of like one of my favorite parts of like zombie, mutant, like any kind of media where it's like humans versus something else. It's like, humans, obviously we're humans, we're watching it. There's like it's through a human lens, but like, humans don't necessarily have the right to just like show up and be the dominant species, right? Like maybe sometime something eventually will replace humans as like the apex of or not maybe, definitely at some point something else will be on the earth
Definitely.
that's the apex species, will be gone, dust. But
Yeah.
this is like one example of like, okay, humans are being replaced, and it is kind of interesting to me, and this is the part I alluded to earlier, when Tess is bit and infected and about to turn, she's struggling with the lighter that she's going to use to blow up the horde that's coming. Maybe that's the fungus taking hold and like not letting her hit the lighter well, or maybe it's just like being afraid. But it's kind of like she's in between a human and like an infected in those moments. And one of the infected comes over, and you can kind of, at least in my interpretation, like she doesn't resist it kissing her, because like
Hmm.
she's already like on her way to becoming, and one of them.
Mm.
And it's kind of like a kiss of death for her, but also like a kiss of life for the infected, right? Because it's taking this human and making it part of it.
Mm.
It's bringing her into the fold almost. And well, it's like kind of an awkward and weird scene. It was very interesting to me, and I obviously I got to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is like totally wild. I was like, you know shook by it was just yeah, it was just totally unexpected. I mean, and it raises a lot of questions, right? Like, was she fully in control at that moment? Was she cognizant? Obviously, I don't think she was expecting that. But like, did she not stop it because she wanted to give herself enough time to keep trying to light it? Was she just simply not in control, and it had already, the cordyceps had already, like, taken over that part of her brain where she couldn't move away? um I thought it was like so weird and interesting. And I mean, it does make sense for the cordyceps to try to just kind of spread. If she's already infected, I'm sure they can tell. And it makes sense that it wouldn't just attack her and try to like kill her. It's like it's trying to like just spread and maybe even like turn her into um a more advanced type of Last of Us zombie, as we've seen in the games. There are definitely different
Yeah.
levels of this. um Maybe it was trying to be like, all right, you're like one step above like clicker or bloater, or something like that. It's like, I don't,
Yeah,
it's
because I
kind of a
think
mystery. But
it's like runner, which is like newly infected, and then
mm,
stalker, which is what like that guy was, where he's like between a runner and
mm,
a
right,
clicker, and then like clicker, and then there's more, that hasn't been explored yet, so we won't go too into that
right,
on
true.
this. But yeah, no, I think because I think everyone's first um reaction was like, this is gross. Like, I don't want to
Mm.
see, the like tendril like kiss. But it's not the fungus. It's not like a romantic or sexual thing to the fungus, right? Like,
No.
it's just like the most efficient way to spread the infection, to get it
Hmm.
into her brain. So it's very interesting, but it definitely caused quite a stir on online today and last night from what I saw.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it rightfully so. It's a really weird moment, and
It's
it
it's
almost feels like,
disturbing in a way that like zombie
yeah,
stuff hasn't been disturbing in a little while.
yeah. The only thing that comes close to it is like, the talking zombies and the Walking Dead. I would say like that was like cool new spin that no one's ever done. This is like a new spin that I haven't seen. Where it's like, yeah, and it's almost like David Lynchian. It's like really like out there, but I love it. I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah. No, I thought it was super interesting as well. On that note, I thought it was very interesting. So in the game, Ellie is bit. Tess gets bit. Ellie doesn't get bit again, like she does in
Mm,
here. But I thought it was cool because like Joel, it really doesn't feel like Joel necessarily believes that Ellie's like immune. I think he's kind of like, no one's immune. Like, maybe she's still alive and
right.
that's nice, but like eventually she's gonna go over to the infected side. But because you have the scene with them both being bit at the same time, you get like Tess being like, look, like I'm already like feeling infected, like I'm trembling, like it's all
Mm,
really gross. Ellie doesn't have anything like that on her arm. So like
yeah.
this is real, and I really loved this moment for Tess. Obviously, the actress is so fucking good. Oh my god, she
Mm,
she killed it.
yeah.
But Tess and Joel, not good people, right? Like
Right.
they wouldn't be alive at this point, honestly, if they were like truly like virtuous. They've done bad things, and
Mm-hmm.
they carry the weight of those things with them. And Tess sees like this as maybe their only true chance at salvation. Like maybe they can help Ellie in her journey and save the whole world. And I don't know how much Joel buys into it, but I think, Joel at least is willing to carry the torch for Tess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely. And I would say this is really my like first critique of the show. Something that I think they could have perhaps executed better, because this was on the shorter end. This episode, I think it was about, it was like maybe under 50 minutes. I think they could have added about 10 minutes and developed Tess's character, and really explored what you're talking about, because the fact that we're kind of, I mean, it is established. She says that she's like, here's like my chance to like make up for that stuff. It's still a bit speculative on our part because we've only known this character for, like less than an hour. I mean, she comes into the first episode sort of towards the end, like middle half, and then dies at the end of this episode. I really could have used more with her to really see that transformation. Maybe there's a bit of dialogue between her and Joel. You wouldn't want to do a flashback, but just off the top of my head, it's like, maybe they explore something else they did that was kind of fucked up in maybe one of the locations that they had been to. Who knows? I think they could have explored that area a bit more. I was almost thinking that they would want to kill her in the following episode, but I think they're really kind of like going at a pretty good pace. Like I think the next episode they're probably gonna have what's his name's character? They're gonna have Bill. Like I think,
sure, yeah.
Which it to me, my first instinct, because I should also preface this by saying I don't watch trailers or like next time on Last of Us, I don't watch those things, but I do think that's like, that feels too early for me. But then again, I get it because it's like, it's a show. You only have whatever 8 to 10 episodes. You got to hit these story beats, and you can't just all be like the two of them walking and talking. That said, I kind of did want them to take their time a little more with Tess, and that balance between being a good person in or being rather being a bad person in a really hard world, and finding that like redemption, which she sort of does at the end.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it like past the show to do flashbacks, just because they've started, well, like flashback, and then like a 30-year later flashback, then like a 20-year after that flashback, right. And then they did another like 20 years before flashback. So possibly we could get more tests in the future. We'll see. There, but yeah, I think I totally get what you're saying. Where it's like, it's always show don't tell, right? That's like the big piece of advice for being a writer. This was a little like, well, we got to tell you because we need to like speed stuff up here,
right?
And I think that in the last episode we recorded, I definitely was like a little on the fence of like, are they gonna adapt the whole game in one season? Like you said, this was fast to get to test that. Like they could have, and maybe lesser shows or like less confident shows would have, kind of spent an episode like, oh, this is the episode where they have to get around the clickers, and that's all they're doing in this episode, and then they do it, and then have another one. But no, this show seems to be like we're moving, like we're getting through the game,
which is like like you said, it is a sign of like they're confident in their writing material, they're confident in the story, and that's something I think to compare to another zombie TV show, The Walking Dead doesn't necessarily have the confidence to do sometimes with its source material, where they spent all of season 2 on the farm,
season
and it's
2
like
on the farm, which is
nothing
2.5 issues in the comics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I just want to preface this. I love The Walking Dead, all the franchise. I've watched all the shows. Like if I am negatively comparing The Walking Dead to The Last of Us, only because The Walking Dead is like the preeminent zombie franchise, right? But yeah, no, Walking Dead would do stuff where it's like the characters have one goal this episode, and it's going to be 42 minutes. Just like, we have to get to this place to get gasoline, and that's the episode. Like they're just going to spend the whole time getting gasoline and coming back, and that's the whole thing.
And you get some like character moments here and there during that, like moments of respite, and I get that as well, just to defend The Walking Dead, because I am also a big fan too. I love the comics, but The Walking Dead is a series that was purposely built to be like long lasting, and just, there is no, 3 act structure to like the seasons or anything. It's just kind of like, this is how a zombie world would just unfold and unfold and unfold. Whereas The Last of Us is really, here's the story about two characters. We need to bring them together as soon as possible in a story sense, because that's where the heart of the story really is. And we need that Ellie and Joel traveling together and like getting to that point, and we do get one moment in this show where they're alone, and it's really like the first time that's just one-on-one, and it's like a little awkward. They're like, Ellie's like asking him personal questions and he's like not budging. It's actually a wonderful little scene. It's the first time we really see them like, two stubborn ass people trying to get along. But
let me see. Let me see if this resonates at all. The Walking Dead is the story of the zombie apocalypse. The Last of Us is a story set in the zombie apocalypse. Does that make sense?
I would go even further. Yeah, it's a story set it's about the survivors, and it's about it's really, I mean, both shows are about like human nature and how that's almost like the biggest enemy, even when shit falls apart, and it's all about zombies.
Walking Dead famously had like "Fight the Dead, Fear the Living" as their tagline for a while, which was very good.
Yeah, and there's that really famous like Rick Grimes line where he's like, "We are the Walking Dead." It's like after like it's like issue like 50 or something in the comics, but yeah, The Last of Us I think is more so about these people in this world that they happen to have fallen into, and how like love can still grow and exist in such a like desolate and tough situation.
And it's just very focused, it's just very like you said, it can set up the 3-act structure of the story because it knows what it wants to tell, where like sometimes the show for sure, like the comic had way more defined arcs, I felt like, than the show did. The show for sure got a little meandering, and we had a whole like hour and a half long episode of Morgan learning Aikido from a cheesemaker.
This is The Walking Dead. Definitely.
No, we're not gonna do that.
It's becoming a Walking Dead podcast now. No, but yeah, I mean, to raise another like bigger point about The Last of Us, as these weeks go on, and I want to see like if this is in fact the case. Listening to interviews, watching these episodes, I really do feel like Neil Druckmann is trying to scare us in a really deep and like personal way, because they keep hammering home this idea that this is possible. These like cordyceps are real. All of like the mechanics in the show, maybe not all of them, but like a lot of the mechanics in the show, like the ability for these zombies to like communicate over miles, they are possible. And like I really do feel like in a way with their marketing, with a lot of the script, they're trying to really like scare people on like a very, very deep level, and it's like kind of working on me. I'm like, not gonna lie, in a way that didn't really happen in the games as much. Like I do think with the show, he's like hammering home like this is his child, like this franchise is like his child, and he really wants to like perfect it.
No, I mean it's really masterfully done, and I'm glad he's getting the chance to tell it, like I said last episode, in potentially the medium that it was always meant to be told in. Definitely. Rather. Anything else that you wanted to hit on? We didn't want to do beat by beat, right? So I tried to kind of hit like the big talking points of the episode, but I don't know if I missed any that you really wanted to.
I don't think so. No, I mean I can make one more joke, but other than that, that was I think that's all I had. Yeah. So I guess I'll just mention it. Yeah, so I have one more big complaint, which was that they did not shoot that at the Boston Capitol State House. That is not the Capitol State House in
No.
Boston. That is somewhere in like freaking Canada.
Yep.
I'm personally offended. No, obviously I think they shot the entire series in Canada, so like it makes sense.
Yeah,
But I was
it's
also
all in Alberta.
yeah.
Shot there. Yeah, because you'll see like the skyline and stuff. And while they did do a great job of having Faneuil Hall, like they recreated Faneuil Hall for at least one shot of this, obviously CGI with like the zombies like moving in the wind with the wind and next to Faneuil Hall. And because the game has the layout of Boston a lot like more, because they can just recreate it, they don't have to get filming permits and all that stuff. It definitely is noticeable as people who are from Massachusetts, where it's like, this is not the skyline of Boston, but
and I was really hoping that, because I think in the games when you get to the Capitol, the Boston Commons, which are right in front of the State House, are like completely flooded, and you see like the duck boats that are like so like iconic to Boston. I was really hoping they'd have like one of those just like kind of in like the foreground, like a duck boat that's like on its side or something, but I didn't see it.
Kind of a missed opportunity, right? To not have a duck boat. They're very iconic for people not from Boston. Very big deal here. We love the duck boats in Boston.
Yeah, they're wicked nice.
Yeah, no Red Sox memorabilia anywhere either, which is very unrealistic.
Actually, I think one guy might have had like a Boston Red Sox hat.
All right.
In the first episode. I think that's about it though.
There would be more. There'd be like
definitely
a solid like 30% of the clothes people would wear would be Red Sox stuff. And I mean, pretty messed up. They set this outbreak in 2003 before the Red Sox broke the curse. Like the people who are alive in Boston here are like, damn, the world ended before the Red Sox could even win a World Series. That is messed up.
That's so true. Yeah. So they're even more like tilted and violent because of that.
Yeah. So good. It's kind of to tie it into the game. In the original version of The Last of Us, I don't know if they patched it out and everything, but it said when there's a part where they go past. This is a little spoilery, so if you don't want to skip ahead like 10 seconds, they go past Wrigley Field, and it's like world champion Cubs 2013. The Cubs didn't win the World Series in 2013, but it was just fun, like a funny thing to be like, oh, the Cubs broke their curse and then the world ended because of it.
Right. Yeah, I love that little detail.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So they could have done a similar thing with the Red Sox of like World Series 2004, and then the world ended because they broke their curse.
That would be hilarious.
But yeah, other than that, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I thought this was another amazing episode. I love this show, dude. It went up again last week, 4.7 million viewers. This week, 5.7. Much like House of the Dragon, you make a good show, people are gonna tell their friends, and like more people are gonna.
Yeah.
I think each week just like keep jumping on this bandwagon, and we're happy to have them because maybe they'll come listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
So
anything we'll have some guests as well.
Yes, yeah. Couldn't find anyone. Everyone wants to guest until it's time to guest, and then people are busy. Short notice, of course, but we will have guests in the future. But yeah, anything you want to plug or anything before we get out of here?
No, just subscribe to Wicked Good Everything on YouTube and all of the social media stuff, TikTok included, and I'm excited to keep talking about this week by week.
Yeah, me too. I made a TikTok for Worth Fighting For that I'll post like clips onto to try to drum up a little bit of support. The clip that we put up last week, which was the theory, which was someone else's theory. So I feel a little bad, but it got a decent amount of views on the We Can Get
Mm,
Everything TikTok. So I was like, I may as well just make a specific, worth fighting for TikTok so people know
right.
like this is a podcast in itself. Hopefully they'll check it out. So if you did come from TikTok, hello, we appreciate you checking out the full episode. And yeah, other than that, subscribe, rate on iTunes, Spotify, all that, and we will see you